For decades, we've searched the stars not just for planets, not just for signals, but for anomalies. Those rare moments when something in the cosmos refuses to obey the rules. And now it's possible that the James Webb Space Telescope found precisely that. What began as a routine observation of the third interstellar object ever recorded in our solar system, 3 Atlas, has turned into something far stranger, far darker, and infinitely more important. Because deep in the vast cold void beyond Mars, the Webb detected something it shouldn't have: artificial light. Not just natural light, a light that acts like a comet or asteroid. A signature that follows no known physics of reflection or refraction. And now astronomers and astrophysicists are left with one question that chills them to the core. What exactly is the 3 Atlas? Stay with us as we dive deep into the data that has just reignited the oldest and most terrifying question of all. Time? Are we alone? 3 Atlas was first spotted as a faint speck on the edge of the solar system, moving in a direction that a nearby object might not follow. It was distinctly interstellar, born outside the gravitational embrace of our sun, flung across the galaxy by some unknown force, now drifting silently through our neighborhood. At first, it was treated as a cosmic curiosity, like its predecessors, Oumuamua and Borisov. But something even in its earliest images felt off. Unlike most interstellar objects, 3 Atlas was unusually bright-tanned, not in a way that made sense. Its magnitude didn't correspond to its estimated size or makeup. It sparkled in a way that wasn't quite consistent, its brightness neither fading as expected, nor flaring with any sign of outgassing or dust release. Traditional comets tend to brighten in bursts as ice sublimates, but this one remained steady, as if it were powered from within. All over the world, telescopes turned to observe it, and Webb, with its unparalleled ability to peer into the infrared spectrum, was brought in to decode the mystery. What it saw changed everything. Perched a million miles from Earth at the Lagrange point, the James Webb Space Telescope was designed to see the unseen, to cut through the glare of stars and reveal what's hidden in the shadows. Its gaze upon 3 Atlas was anticipated to clarify the ambiguity. Instead, it deepened the mystery. The telescope's instruments found centralized thermal emission that didn't correlate with any natural reflection of sunlight. Typically, a comet shines due to the sun's rays bouncing off dust and ice. However, 3 Atlas revealed an internal signature of heat, something that radiated from the core outward. This wasn't scattered light, it was emitted light. The thermal mapping revealed a pattern that followed no known distribution of natural objects' curves. It pulsed faintly, irregularly, and, most surprisingly, it appeared to cycle at intervals. That pattern of continuous repetition subtly suggested it wasn't randomness, but design. Some scientists at NASA and the European Space Agency proposed exotic explanations: decay of radioactivity, subsurface friction, alien isotopes. But those hypotheses collapsed as additional data confirmed otherwise. Only one explanation remained on the table, the one no one wanted to write down. This object could be powered. As data from Webb, Hubble, and terrestrial observatories piled up, a profile of 3 Atlas began to emerge, and it did not resemble any known celestial body. Its trajectory was too precise to be haphazard, as if choosing its path, subtly adjusting course through gravity wells. Its rotation was unnaturally stable, with a tumbling motion that defied standard inertial drift and the absence of a cometary tail, even when passing near radiation from the sun, suggested a shell or casing, perhaps something protecting it from the heat. The most controversial finding was the albedo reflectivity of its surface, which was measured to be nearly perfect in parts, approaching that of polished metal, not ice, dust, or rock. The implications hit like a shockwave across the astronomical community. If it was shaped, metallic, and emitting energy, then we were no longer observing a natural object. We were observing technology. Suddenly, the term probe was whispered in hallways: craft, beacon, even artifact. The idea that this might be an alien spacecraft was no longer relegated to conspiracy forums. It was now quietly circulating in institutional emails behind encrypted firewalls. Possibly the most damning component was neither the thermal emissions, nor the path, nor the peculiar metallic signature was the light. Photometric analysis showed something chilling. The light coming from 3 Atlas was focused in a narrow spectrum band. In other words, it wasn't a broad natural sunlight reflection, but a controlled emission of specific wavelengths. This is precisely what we do with LED arrays, laser communication systems, and spacecraft signal beacons. Furthermore, the frequencies in this band were those used in communication and guidance systems on Earth. In addition, the light's intensity appeared to respond, ever so slightly, to solar radiation, as though some onboard system was adjusting it in real time. It did not blink at random, but with a strange, intermittent pulse. Astronomers ran the data through known models of signals. What they got was inconclusive, but not meaningless. Some claimed the pulses resembled binary sequences. Others suggested it might be a rotating power source. But the conclusion was undeniable. This wasn't an inanimate object. It was executing. Something deliberate, and we were watching it live. A group of astrophysicists from MIT and Harvard ran a deep signal analysis over the electromagnetic emissions coming from 3 Atlas. At first glance, frequency seemed random, just noise scattered across the spectrum. But when they used Fourier transformations to isolate cyclical patterns, something emerged. Within the static, buried like a whisper beneath the chaos, was a structured, repeating pulse too precise to be natural. It wasn't a standard binary, nor a typical modulation used in human technology. But it bore the unmistakable evidence of deliberate encoding. Some speculated it could be a beacon, a repeating broadcast intended for receivers not of earthly origin. Others theorized it could be telemetry, a constant data stream sent back to wherever this object came from. The most unsettling aspect was that no matter what the message was, it hadn't changed since the Webb first detected it. It was as if 3 Atlas wasn't trying to talk to us, but to someone else. And maybe that someone had already heard it. News of the discovery spread quickly through the highest levels of scientific and defense institutions. A confidential report, distributed internally within NASA and then leaked to an unnamed journalist, revealed that top officials were already coordinating with global space agencies to determine whether 3 Atlas posed a threat. Some scientists argued it was benign, an ancient probe, perhaps centuries old, on a pre-planned route through the stars. Others weren't so optimistic. They raised questions no one could answer. If it's transmitting, then who is receiving it? If it emits light, does it also have propulsion? Why is it here now, if it is here by design? The report mentioned the possibility, however remote, that 3 Atlas was not just passing through but observing tracking planetary alignments, electromagnetic fields, or even advanced civilizations. This possibility sparked panic behind the scenes because if this object wasn't alone, then something else might be on the ways, something that scented an additional examination of the luminosity of 3 Atlas led to a revolutionary hypothesis. The object wasn't just emitting energy. It was harvesting it. The way the object's light output varied with proximity to the sun, combined with the absence of apparent chemical reactions, supported the idea that it might be using a solar collection array or an embedded photonic absorption system beneath its surface. Lowe and a group of theorists postulated that the dust cloud surrounding the object could serve a double purpose, both as camouflage to disguise its fabricated structure and as a medium through which to absorb solar radiation. True, this would suggest that 3 Atlas is a self-sustaining craft designed to travel indefinitely through deep space, refueling itself as it moves from star to star. This concept aligns with known theoretical models of interstellar probes machines that could remain dormant for hundreds of years, triggering only when reaching a star system worth investigating. And if our solar system triggered that activation, then the message got through. As international space agencies scrambled for answers, one truth became more apparent. We are not ready. Despite decades of speculation about contact with extraterrestrials, political, scientific, philosophical, we are utterly ill-equipped to process what 3 Atlas might represent. No official statements had been made, but internal documents leaked from agencies in France, Japan, and Brazil all hinted at similar conclusions. This object might not just be an anomaly, but a first encounter in slow motion. And unlike what Hollywood taught us, there was no landing, no sudden appearance in the sky, no immediate answers on the data, only light, only silence. The Webb continues to observe the object every day, and yet every answer it delivers appears to raise 2 additional concerns. If this is contact, then it's contact on their terms, not ours, quiet, distant, unsettling. And that may be the most terrifying thing of all, because what we may be witnessing is not an invitation. It may be surveillance, and we may already have been observed. Just when astronomers believed 3 Atlas had settled into an established trajectory pattern, something unexpected happened. Its luminosity spiked dramatically. This wasn't a gradual increase caused by its proximity to the Sun. It was a sudden flare captured in real time by the James Webb Telescope and confirmed by several ground-based observatories. The object's brightness increased by nearly 40% in under 2 minutes, then stabilized at a new, heightened level. No natural explanation fit the data. There was no evidence of solar-wind interaction, no impact event, no fragmentary disintegration. It was as if something or someone had turned a switch. The flare wasn't just visible. It carried with it a change in the thermal signature of the object, almost as if systems had powered on. Theorists proposed a chilling possibility that this object had entered an awakened phase, either triggered by its proximity to our star or by our own observations. And if this flare was an intentional act, then it was meant to be seen. Shortly after the anomalous brightening, orbital calculations using a variety of agencies also found something else. 3I Atlas was no longer precisely following its projected path. It had shifted slightly, subtly, but measurably. Gravity alone couldn't account for the alteration. Even solar radiation pressure, which is frequently used as an excuse for small, coarse changes in lightweight objects, didn't add up. This shift was more alarming and deliberate. Where the new trajectory pointed deeper into the solar system, with an adjusted inclination that brought it closer to the plane of Earth's orbit, was significant. The object ceased to be merely passing through. It had, in effect, changed lanes. Some scientists cautioned restraint, calling it a gravitational anomaly. But others saw the shift as a maneuver, a subtle correction that neither a rock nor a comet had ever produced. Additionally, if 3I Atlas was capable of even limited propulsion or navigation, it meant we had moved on from observing a relic. While we were watching, it was a vessel moving, a vessel with a purpose. As the object passed within range of spectroscopic instruments aboard the Webb and the Hubble Space Telescope, researchers began to detect elements and compounds that raised more red flags. Evidence of highly reflective alloys, rare earth elements, and, most shockingly, spectral absorption lines that resembled no compounds cataloged in our periodic table was detected. These were not the kinds of materials one would find in a frozen chunk of interstellar rock. They were engineered, or at the very least synthesized, under unknown conditions to exist naturally. One spectral profile matched no known chemical process, but closely resembled theoretical compounds proposed in labs for quantum material substances believed to exist only under the influence of intense magnetic fields or quantum confinement. This discovery implied an age beyond comprehension, suggesting the object predates human civilization by millennia or indicates highly advanced recent manufacture by a civilization far beyond our own. The nature of the materials spoke louder than any signal. Because even if we couldn't decode the message, the messenger itself was unnatural, with mounting evidence pointing to a non-natural origin. Governments and agencies began reacting not publicly, but with unmistakable urgency. Encryption levels rose on observatory networks. Research teams were quietly reassigned. A sudden, unexplained surge in satellite recalibrations was observed across multiple continents. Spacefaring nations started discreet emergency discussions conducted behind closed doors. One document, leaked from an international defense consortium, suggested that 3i Atlas might not be a lone visitor, but a scout. The peculiar structure of the object, its stable rotation, and its apparent ability to continue functioning across interstellar distances indicated a design consistent with long-term observation probes. But if it was scouting, what was it looking for? It's even more troubling. What else might transpire? Across universities, observatories, and military command centers. A terrifying consensus was forming. We were no longer alone in the universe, and the first contact might not be a conversation, but an evaluation. As speculation reached a boiling point, a bold team at the SETI Institute decided to take a chance that no one else would. They sent a focused radio signal pulse directly toward the projected path of 3i Atlas. The argument contained universal mathematical constants, the periodic table, and basic visual representations of humanity. It was envisioned as a cosmic handshake, a cautious hello. Days passed, then a week with no response. But just when the experiment was about to be dismissed as another silent call into the night, one of the Chilean monitoring stations noticed something peculiar. A narrow, off-frequency band return pulse, distorted but unmistakably timed to reflect the initial message. It wasn't a response with language. It wasn't an echo. It was a ping, a return signal with just enough variance to imply it wasn't passive pondering. It had been processed. It had been sent back. But what shook the SETI team the most wasn't the signal itself. The timing was to blame because the response arrived exactly 72 hours after transmission to the second. It meant something had not only received our message, it had calculated the delay and given a deliberate response. Following the detection of the return ping, observatories around the globe began experiencing technical anomalies. Webb's infrared instruments showed erratic thermal mapping for the first time since launch. Also, Hubble's gyroscopic sensors detected the smallest fluctuations, despite the orientation being stable. Ground-based telescopes experienced what were initially dismissed as software glitches, misaligned star charts, inexplicable pixel distortions, and frozen data streams, precisely when focused on 3i Atlas. Yet these errors did not occur at random. They occurred in synchronized windows, as if coordinated, as if some entity or individual wanted to keep us from looking too closely. A theory emerged from a black ops think tank buried deep within the European Space Agency. The object wasn't just emitting signals, it was jamming us, interfering selectively. The implications were staggering. A passive visitor doesn't hide its identity. A scout does. If the object was actively managing what we could see and when we could see it, we weren't paying attention to it. We were being allowed to, after that. Silence. Within days of the signal event and the technical malfunctions, updates from Webb were delayed, restricted, and eventually rerouted. Public logs were no longer accessible. The European Space Agency released a vague statement about instrument recalibration. NASA simply stopped commenting. Even reputable journals that had been closely covering 3i Atlas began publishing neutral summaries or retracting stories. Devoid of detail, the astrophysics community was split. Some believed the organizations were attempting to confirm the discovery before going public. Others believed something far darker, that the truth had already been confirmed and was now being contained. The few remaining independent observatories began releasing raw data to public streams. But these were quickly drowned in a flood of misinformation and speculation. What was once a global scientific mystery had now transformed into a strategic asset. And the past has shown us what happens when governments declare a discovery classified. Silence kills truth. In a desperate attempt to comprehend what they were observing, a coalition of astronomers and mathematicians turned to pattern, recognition, and probability theory. They were no longer seeking to communicate. They were looking for evidence of intent. And that's when they discovered the most terrifying pattern. The object's path through the planets and stars, while seemingly natural, mirrored a Fibonacci arc when plotted against planetary positions, an ancient spiral of proportional beauty, found throughout nature and, coincidentally, in many protocols for communication on Earth. Furthermore, the timing of its course corrections, light flares, and even the ping response were correlated with prime number sequences. The odds of this occurring naturally were astronomically low. These patterns were chosen. This denoted that 3I Atlas wasn't just flying through the solar system. It was navigating with mathematical precision, as if following a schedule or map. A few theorists now whispered the unthinkable. This might not be an interstellar spacecraft. It could be an interstellar message, not made of sound or symbols, but of behavior. And we had just decoded the first word as the dust of confusion. Settled, one truth remained impossible to ignore. 3I Atlas was never just a rock. From the unnatural light it emitted to the signal it returned, from the rare materials to the calculated change in trajectory, every piece of this enigma pointed to a single unpleasant conclusion. We had not been alone for a very long time, and we might never have been told. The James Webb Telescope, built to peer into the birth of galaxies, may have instead caught a glimpse of something designed to examine the past, something ancient, deliberate, and watching, not from the security of a faraway star system, but from the threshold of our own celestial neighborhood. And yet, silence reigns. The agencies refuse to speak. The data is withheld. The world, it seems, has been deemed not ready. But we saw the light. We followed the road. And now we ask the question that terrifies even the most rational minds. What happens next? Did 3I Atlas just pass through, recording our small world before continuing its journey? Or was it merely the first of many a probe leading the way for something greater? Something waiting for a signal to move forward? In the end, it might not matter if 3I Atlas was a machine or something else entirely. What matters is that it came, it saw, and it responded. And now, somewhere in the cold, endless dark, something may be turning its attention toward the blinking blue planet first. The countdown, perhaps, has already started, and the universe, once more, reminds us. We are not the center. We are the watched,